It is Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This week is the kind of late March preview, but it is the March preview episode, and we will be covering Luke Cage episodes 6 and 7. But first, I got to introduce my co-host, Jacob Martin. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, my friend. It's always a pleasure to be on your podcast. I'm excited to dive into the March preview. I know we're a little behind on that. That was something on my end, but I'm glad to be back and talking some exciting movies coming out this month.
Yeah, you're back, and that's all that matters. It was a personal issue. That's why there was no episode last week. But from what you tell me, Jacob, it looks like it was resolved, and thank God for that.
Yes, I don't really want to dive too deep into it because it's too
Sure.
personal, but it's all good now, and I'm very thankful for that and the people that I'm a part of in this the school that I'm with.
Yeah, speaking of school, how is that going for you?
School's going pretty good. Survived the midterms in this quarter, and I gotta get some of my other assignments done to get ready for the final exam in a few more weeks.
What's a midterm like in a school like that? Is it something written? Is it a verbal thing? Maybe both?
Depends on the class, honestly. Some classes there's a lot of discussion questions. Some it's just your typical question answer. Just depends on the teacher.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, keep us filled in on that as it goes on. I'm praying for you. I'm rooting for you, and I know that you just crushed the midterms because you're you and you're awesome. Well,
Thank
uh,
you.
let's dive into some Luke Cage coverage. Unless there's a movie that you've seen lately that you want to talk about.
I haven't been watching as many movies mainly because of the midterms. I will say I did recently watch for celebrating Disney. I covered Lilo and Stitch 2, and my thought. If you watch my recent live stream, I talked about that. If not, I'll post a standalone video. But that was a pretty decent direct-to-video sequel. I had never seen it before. It got surprisingly dark at times because it's dealing with Stitch malfunctioning and glitching and possibly dying. Kind of a odd direction to go, but it still had the charm of the original movie, and I appreciate it for what it was trying to do. I feel like the movie could have been a little longer. I feel like the movie's short runtime. I wish I could have fleshed. I wish the movie fleshed out some of the darker themes of the story. But it's not a bad direct-to-video sequel, and it's worth a one-time watch on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I kind of forget that this movie even exists. So it was like Stitch is a glitch or something. I always forget about that.
Yeah, I remember seeing it advertised when it came out, but it came out during that time when I was starting to phase out of a lot of the direct to video sequels because I think by then I realized a lot of them were not that good. So I kind of avoided it like the plague. But it's honestly, even though it's not great, I'd say this is probably one of the better, more watchable direct to video sequels.
Yeah, those direct-to-video sequels, we got to do like a show on them or like maybe review a couple of them on here because they exist in like this weird little world that I've always wanted to explore for both good and ill. But that's going to be another thing for another time. But big thing for me, I watched Creed 3, which that review is currently on the channel now if you all want to check it out. I won't spoil it here, but it is my favorite movie of the year so far. I know it's only March, but it's that I think that movie is fantastic, and I won't say too much because I know Jacob, you haven't seen it yet, and I imagine you do want to see it.
Yes.
I will say no more, but trust me when I say it is very, very good indeed. But what have you all been watching lately? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. Well, let's dive into two episodes of Luke Cage. First of all, season 1, episode 6, called Suckers Need Bodyguards. That title must have been written by Booker T. So the premise is this. After Cottonmouth and Scarf's bloody clash, Luke realizes that saving the community may turn former allies into enemies and enemies into allies. So the walls are closing in on Cottonmouth, it seems here, and I mean, and that's bleeding over into the next episode. But Jacob, what did you think of this one?
I thought it was real interesting. I like that. I'll say this with both episodes. Both episodes really swung for the fences and took turns in the story that I honestly did not see coming. In this episode's case, episode 6 is what happens to Scarf. Because I thought he was just going to be playing the field all throughout the course of the season. And no, that's not what happened. Cottonmouth shoots him. He goes to Luke Cage for help because everyone's turning against him on Cottonmouth and everything. And he dies by the end when Luke's trying to protect him because he's trying to use Luke Cage as a way to expose Cottonmouth. So it went in an interesting direction. I liked where the story went. It's cool seeing more development with these characters: Luke, Cottonmouth, his cousin. Even that subplot with her character Alfre Woodard and her trying to do the campaign, but because of the actions with Luke Cage trying to expose Cottonmouth, it's kind of bleeding into her political campaign, and and that's starting to bite her in the butt. Uh, I thought it was a pretty good episode. The complaint I had with the previous one with Rosario Dawson's character, uh, I like that she and Luke Cage actually do team up in this episode, and it makes sense why she's in the show compared to in the previous one where she's just randomly there and the stories don't intertwine. So I thought overall this was an enjoyable episode of Luke Cage.
Yeah, it's we're reaching the halfway point here, and I'll ask you about your thoughts overall on the season entire. But I did enjoy this episode as well. I think there was definitely some interesting directions and direct and choices made, and well, the most interesting one is probably in the following episode, quite simply called Manifest. Mariah's political career comes under fire, and Cottonmouth picks up information that could put Luke on the run. So, as we were teasing, and well, I guess spoiler, Cottonmouth dies in this one. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
so what happens? What happens now?
yeah. I see one. I did not see that coming because I've highly enjoyed that character, and I was shocked at the direction they took with that. Yeah, because you think Luke Cage would take him out because that's what it was building up to. Uh, that could either be a blessing or a curse because for one, I enjoyed the character so much. And I fear if because they took Cottonmouth out too early and it was a betrayal by his cousin, it could hurt the rest of the show because the Cottonmouth character was the character I was actually getting into the most, and it was cool diving into his backstory in this episode and the some of the abuse that he's had from his family and the complicated relationship with his cousin and all that. I was really getting into that, and the fact that he went out like that, it kind of gave him a tragic end, and it led to some pretty good storytelling and writing, which I appreciate. But I don't know how that's going to translate over into the rest of the season where there's a big void left. But I like that it shows that, the cousin, Alfre Woodard, the politician lady, I forget her name off the top of my head. It shows
Mariah,
how
Mariah Dillard.
Mariah, I should know that. It shows how much of a monster that character actually is and how ruthless that she is. And I think she'll be a worthy foil throughout the remainder of the season, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you thought of Alfre Woodard as Mariah Dillard. I think if these two episodes have proven anything, is that this whole new Harlem initiative just kind of feels like a load of crap. Like she's just a politician talking out of both sides of her neck.
Yeah, pretty much, because all she's saying is, "Oh, I'm going to fix Harlem. I'm doing this," but she's not doing anything. It's all a matter of words, and eventually, when you're just spewing out nonsense, your wicked deeds are going to be exposed eventually.
Without a doubt. And it's like we thought Cottonmouth was the snake we should worry about, but no, it was actually Diamondback, played by Eric LeRae Harvey. And what did you think of him?
You talking about like you talking about the assassin guy or
Yeah, yeah, that's him.
Oh yeah, that was a pretty shocker moment at the end. But they had teased it in previous episodes, and I kind of forgot about it. In the back of my mind, I'm like, "Are we getting back to this plot point?" And it happened at the very end of the episode. I'm like, "Oh, yeah. How is Luke Cage going to get out of this mess in the next episode?" When it was previously teased that that would kind of be his kryptonite.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I guess this is as good a place as any. Now that we are officially over the halfway point of Luke Cage season one, what are your general thoughts? You like it? You don't like it? Think it's just okay?
I'm actually really enjoying Luke Cage. I think this has been one of the better Marvel Netflix shows that's come out because some of the previous ones we've covered, aside from Daredevil season one, which was fantastic, I thought Jessica Jones had a great start but a lackluster finish, and I felt the same way with season two of Daredevil. I'm hoping Luke Cage has a good finish at the end. I do have a little bit of concerns considering the main villain got killed off halfway through the first season. But if the rest of the season does deliver, it could be one of the more hidden gem shows that Marvel has going for it.
Yeah, and what I like about it is that it feels different. A lot of the complaints have been is like, oh, the MCU is just all the same flavor. Well, not Luke Cage, if you really look at it. It's very much
No,
inspired by like Superfly, and it has a very a very African American cinema type of feel to it. Just how it walks,
yeah,
how it talks, the music that's presented. It's one of the more different shows that was presented in the MCU, whatever their involvement is in it.
yeah, it's kind of like I think it's the term you're searching for is called the black exploitation, which was a big era of movies, black cinema in the 1970s, like about Superfly and Coffee and Dolomite, among others.
Yeah, that's the one. It definitely has that feeling to it. But what did you all think of these two episodes? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. Well, without any further ado, let's get into the March preview. And this is going to be live on March 8th. So these first couple of movies are already in theaters, but we'll cover them anyway. First up is Creed 3. Adonis has been thriving in both his career and family life, but when a childhood friend and former boxing prodigy resurfaces, the face-off is more than just a fight. Now, I've already reviewed this. I really enjoyed it. It's the directorial debut of Michael B. Jordan. So my review is already live, but out of five, Jacob, what would you give this excitement wise?
Well, if I'm saying this pretending like the movie hadn't come out yet, my anticipation grade would have been a 4.5 out of 5. Obviously, I'm a fan of the Rocky franchise. The last two Creed movies were excellent. I'm a little bummed that Rocky's not in the movie. I'll miss Rocky, but I felt like he had a good story arc from the first film all the way up to Creed 2. And I think, based on the success of Creed 3, I think the Adonis Creed character can stand out on his own and still be involved in great stories. And obviously, I'm excited to see Creed 3 when I eventually get the chance to see it. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Ryan, and to see how it goes from here.
Yeah, very good. Well, next up is Operation Fortune Ruse de Guerre. I hope I'm saying that right. This is the new film from Guy Ritchie, and it is in theaters currently. Special Agent Orson Fortune and his team of operatives recruit one of Hollywood's biggest movie stars to help them on an undercover mission when the sale of a deadly new weapons technology threatens to disrupt the world order. So this is one of two movies that Guy Ritchie is directing this year. One is this, and the other is The Covenant, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, and I'm looking forward to both. So, Jacob, what did you think of this?
The trailer didn't really wow me by any means. It just looked like a generic action movie. But the cast in here was still pretty good, especially Jason Statham. And Guy Ritchie has a really good flair of action. He's not really my favorite director, but he does make some enjoyable movies all the same. So because of the cast and the director, I only went three. It didn't look like an exciting movie, but it it could be a good movie. Hopefully it's better than the trailer.
I'm gonna go four. I'm a big fan of Guy Ritchie. I love his Sherlock Holmes films. I love The Gentleman that was released in February of 2020 before everything shut down. It was my second favorite movie of that year behind The Way Back. So I'm a big Guy Ritchie defender. His Aladdin movie was just kind of there, and his King Arthur movie was not great, but we won't hold that against him. So I'm looking forward to this one. Oh, next up is A Little White Lie. I believe this is going to theaters. When a handyman living in New York City is mistaken for a famous and famously reclusive writer, he's brought to a university where he is to deliver a keynote address to save the school's literary festival. Now, this movie stars Michael Shannon, Kate Hudson, Don Johnson, and Zach Braff. Jacob, what did you think of this?
Aside from the cast, this trailer didn't do anything for me. I do not like plots and romantic comedies which deal with like the liar reveal and the manipulation of others. That's a trope that I cannot stand in a lot of these movies. So this one looked like a pretty bad movie just from the trailer alone. As much as I like the cast, the premise did not do anything to sell me on this one. But because of the cast, the highest I can go anticipation is a two.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to because I am a big fan of Michael Shannon, but this kind of feels like a Bug's Life. That's the vibe I got from this of all movies.
But at least A Bug's Life is a good movie despite the really cringy trope.
Yeah, that is very true. Well, next up is Palm Trees and Power Lines. I believe this is also going to theaters. A disconnected teenage girl enters a relationship with a man twice her age. She sees him as the solution to all her problems, but his intentions are not what they seem. This movie feels kind of weird to me, Jacob. Am I the only one? Please tell me I'm not.
Yeah, I'm kind of conflicted on it because it looks like a well-made movie with good performances, but because of the subject matter is so icky with like the age difference in the relationship and everything. Reminded me a little bit of a Stanley Kubrick film I watched for his director project I did a while back, Lolita, and I didn't like Lolita mainly because the subject matter and how they handled it. I feel like the same way with this movie. I'm not sure how it's going to tackle the subject matter, if it's going to be depicted in a negative light or a positive light. I'm hoping it's more so a negative light personally, but it doesn't look like a movie that I'm rushing out to see in any way. But it looks like it's at least going to be well made and well acted. And if it does its job, then I guess more power to it, but it's not one I'm rushing out to see either. I'm going two and a half.
I'm gonna go one and a half just for the vibe of it. It just kind of felt like do 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 do. It's like very I hate this word, but it feels very problematic. Like this girl like dating this man like twice her age. I just
Mhm.
feels very weird. But if it gets good reviews, I mean, who knows? We'll just have
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah. The only reason I went two and a half on it because that was the rating I gave the Stanley Kubrick film.
Oh, fair enough. I appreciate the continuity. Well, next up is Unseen. I believe this is going to theaters. Sam receives a call from Emily, a nearly blind woman who is running from her murderous ex in the woods. She must survive the ordeal, with Sam being her eyes using video call. Now, what did you think of this?
I was kind of conflicted on the trailer, honestly, because the premise sounds fantastic. I'm a fan of these like suspenseful thriller premises, where somebody's life's on the line and an unlikely person has to help in the situation like that. Uh, it has a great setup, but the trailer, half of it based on the trailer, was very comedic in tone, and I didn't think the tones worked in the trailer. So I hope the premise does land. I hope it's a good movie for what it is, but I don't think the wild, goofy slapstick that I saw in the trailer meshes with the thriller vibe from the main premise. But I guess it's another one where we'll just have to wait and see. Just because I like the premise, I gave it a 3, but I'm not sure on the tone.
I'm gonna go three as well. I love this idea of a nearly blind woman and like stumbling around and really someone having to help her out using like Zoom. I think that could be set up for something great. But for this, I'm not sure, but we'll just have to see. Well, next up is Scream 6. Now, some reviews have come out for this, and they have been very positive. In the next installment, the survivors of the Ghostface killings leave Woodsboro behind and start a fresh chapter in New York City. I'm so glad that they've left Woodsboro and they've gotten into a new environment because with New York City, just the trailers alone, just how the killer can like blend in, it just whoever came up with that, I hope they got a raise because they definitely deserved it. Jacob, what say you?
This is another one where I have a lot of conflicting thoughts on. I was in the minority and was not the biggest fan of Scream 5. I felt like without Wes Craven, the Scream franchise has kind of lost its magic flavor that can't be replicated, especially now the original director is, sadly passed away. This one didn't look like it was going to wow me either. The biggest turn off for me was they didn't get Nev Campbell back as Sidney Prescott, who decided not to come back after a pay dispute, which to me is just messed up because you got your big face of the franchise, but you couldn't get her back just because of pay reasons. That's pretty stupid. But I don't really have much interest in the Scream franchise that much. Like the fifth one, which a lot of people love, to me it was just kind of meh at best. And without your key character in the franchise, I mean, what's the point of making another Scream movie? So I'm not too excited on Scream 5. I mean, if the reviews are good, then maybe I'll watch it. But right now, it's 2 at the moment.
I'm gonna go 2.5. I think the premise sounds awesome, and that's really the only thing giving it juice for me. I think the rest might not work out so well, but we'll just have to see. Well, next up is 65. This is coming from the same folks that created A Quiet Place. An astronaut crash lands on a mysterious planet only to discover he's not alone. They pretty much spoiled it in the trailer. He's on Earth 65 million years ago, which I hate. I hated that trailer so much because like you spoiled the big reveal of it. It's just I don't know. I was not a fan of it, but the premise sounds good, and I do like Adam Driver, so I think there is some steam behind this.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you would market that the way you were describing it. And plus, the premise is kind of in the title too. It's 65, but I like the idea on paper, and I do like Adam Driver. It doesn't look like it's gonna be like the best movie in the world or anything, but it does look like dumb, goofy fun. Uh, Adam Driver taking on dinosaurs does sound pretty awesome on paper. I'm giving it no higher than a 3, only because uh, I don't think it's gonna like raise the bar on like amazing blockbusters or anything, but it looks decent enough for what it is.
Yeah, I'll go three on that as well. It might surprise me. Who knows? Well, next up is Champions. This is also coming to theaters this weekend. A former minor league basketball coach is ordered by the court to manage a team of players with intellectual disabilities. He soon realizes that despite his doubts, together the team can go further than they ever imagined. So, this is directed by one of the Farrelly brothers. It has Woody Harrelson, Ernie Hudson, and Cheech Marin, among others. Some Rachel, our mutual friend from Rachel's Reviews, has already reviewed this, and she thought it was kind of mean spirited. Which, considering the subject matter, I don't want to see any mean spirited anywhere near this premise. But Jacob, what say you?
Mm. Well, I hate to hear that she didn't like the movie and she thought it was too mean spirited. Because just by looking at the trailer, I thought uh, it looked to be a heartfelt sports movie to me. I liked, even though the plot looks pretty familiar on the surface with the hot shot who gets court ordered to kind of gets demoted and actually enjoys what he's doing now. It's kind of reminded me of the Mighty Ducks a little bit, but I like I do like the cast, and I think the angle with like the disabled kids, doing basketball. I mean, I think you could have some heartfelt stuff with that. I enjoyed the characters just in the trailer alone. Uh, about the mean spiritedness, I guess I'll just have to wait and see. But it looked like a decent movie for what it was. I ended up I'm going 3.5 just because I like the trailer.
I'll go three. I'm knocking it down a half because of what might be, but it could be good. Who knows? Well, next up is probably going to be the most useless movie of the month, Shazam: Fury of the Gods. The film continues the story of teenage Billy Batson, who, upon reciting the magic word Shazam, is transformed into his adult superhero alter ego Shazam. And I say this might be the most useless movie of the month because we got a little movie coming out called The Flash, and it's heavily implied that The Flash is just going to reset everything. So why bother even putting this movie out other than money? But Jacob, am I being too pessimistic?
No, I see where you're coming from completely. And before the whole James Gunn thing, I would have given Shazam a much higher anticipation rating, especially considering I was such a fan of the first movie. I especially enjoyed Zachary Levi as the Shazam character. But now that James Gunn's in charge and he's doing a clean slate, this movie looks it's inconsequential now watching this movie, knowing, whatever they're going to set up in this new movie, they're not going to pay off in any way. However, I like I said, I do like the first movie, and I still plan on seeing Shazam 2, mainly because I like the first film. And I've liked the trailers to this movie, but I'm just not in a rush to see it, unfortunately, because of the ongoing DC developments with James Gunn. But hopefully, it'll still hold my interest. I can only go no higher than 3.5.
I'll go three. I like Zach Levi, and I think Helen Mirren is just phenomenal. So if for nothing else, those two will carry it. But you couldn't ask me with this one. So anyway, next up is Boston Strangler. This is going to Hulu. Loretta McLaughlin was the reporter who first connected the murders and broke the story of the Boston Strangler. She and Gene Cole challenged the sexism of the early 60s to report on the city's most notorious serial killer. This, I was not expecting to like, but I really liked this one, Jacob. I don't know about you.
I definitely agree. When I watched the trailer, I didn't know this was coming out. I'm not familiar with the true story, but it has potential to be that one movie that you didn't know was coming out. You actually watched it, and it was actually one of the highlights of the year. Kind of like how I felt with Prey last year, and I hope Boston Strangler does the exact same thing. Because of its potential, I'm going to go 4.
Yes, I'm right there with you for, and just looking at some of this cast, which I have clicked away from on my iPad. Looking at this cast, you got Keira Knightley and Chris Cooper, who are two actors that I hold in high regard. So even if for nothing else, I would expect those two to deliver.
Yeah.
Well, next up is The Magician's Elephant. This is going to Netflix. See, wait here. Magician's Elephant. This is going to Netflix. An orphan boy is told by a fortune teller that an elephant will help him find his lost sister. So we love animation around here, and I love the look of this one, Jacob. What do you think?
Actually, I wasn't that crazy about the animation style. Just watching the trailer, it looked a little bit cheaper compared to some of the other animated movies that have come out on Netflix. I don't know if that was a consequence of some of the budget cuts that have been going on in Netflix as of late. But this one did not look near as polished compared to the Sea Beast, which came out last year, which I really liked. However, the story is intriguing. I hope it's a fun animated adventure for kids and maybe the kid at heart. Maybe I can get used to the animation style over time, but I think just the animation style has kind of hurt my grade on this one a little bit, anticipation wise, because it it didn't look like it had the same flavor that compared to some of the other animated movies that have come out on Netflix. But I guess it's one we'll have to see. I guess we'll see how it goes. It looks like it could be good for what it is. I can only go no higher than a three because I didn't care for the look of the movie.
I'll go three with you on that for the opposite reason. I love the animation style, and I think this might be a good one. Who knows? Well, next up is moving on. This is going to theaters. Two old friends reconnect at a funeral and decide to get revenge on the widower who messed with them decades before. Boy, that escalated quickly, didn't it? This movie stars Jane Fonda, Malcolm McDowell, and Richard Roundtree. What did you think of this?
Um, this one looked pretty interesting. Well, you're reuniting Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, who I love together in 9 to 5. I feel like if you had put Dolly Parton with the cast as well, you could have made it like an unofficial sequel to 9 to 5. I don't know why they didn't get Dolly, but I guess she's too busy making her own music and stuff. But it looked decent. The premise I was kind of intrigued by. Malcolm McDowell's a good actor. I don't think it's gonna break any new ground. I feel like I've seen this premise before. I feel like two of the actors were in 9 to 5, and that movie was pretty good. So uh, this one looked all right. I'm gonna go three.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with you and say three. I didn't expect to like it, but it looks surprisingly interesting, if for nothing else, just for how for this premise. But we'll see what happens. Next up is Supercell. A teenage boy runs away to follow his father's footsteps, legendary storm chaser Bill Brody. Now, this movie stars Alec Baldwin, which he has been in the news lately. I'm sure you all know exactly what I'm talking about. So, so this is going to be interesting. What did you think?
Um, yeah, this trailer didn't do much for me. I'm not gonna go into the whole Alec Baldwin thing. Just take that for what you will. Despite him being in it, and just this movie just didn't look exciting at all. It just looked like kind of a poor man's version of Twister without the charm, and it just looked kind of. I was just so bored watching the trailer. I don't even remember much about it, and we're recording this on a Monday night. I watched the trailer the night before, and aside from Alec Baldwin being in it, I didn't remember much about it. So I guess that's not a good sign. I'm gonna go. I wrote down two, but now that I'm thinking about it and talking about it, I'm going 1.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo that with you because I mean this kind of feels like kind of a Twister knockoff, and even then I wouldn't be interested in it. Well, this is gonna be a big old five from me, and it is John Wick Chapter 4. Just a bit of a programming note. I'm going to be covering all of the John Wick movies here on the channel. John Wick uncovers a path to defeating the High Table, but before he can earn his freedom, Wick must face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe and forces that turn old friends into foes. So, yeah, this trailer rocks, especially this newest one with Got Yourself a Gun by Nas. I love this trailer so much. Big old five for me.
Yeah, this is probably the biggest disagreement because I know you're a fan of the franchise. I totally respect that. I love the first movie. The first John Wick is awesome, one of the best action movies. Great comeback vehicle for Keanu Reeves. Great simple revenge story that I was a big fan of. But I've not been as big on the sequels. Like, there's great action in all three of these movies, but the more they expand the world building, the less I'm interested in it. I think that's a hot take, but that's just my personal opinion. And you could have made a great trilogy with John Wick, but the cliffhanger annoyed me so much that now I feel like they're starting to milk the franchise dry. And so none of the trailers for John Wick 4 have wowed me. But because I like Keanu Reeves, and I know the action is going to be good at least, I think it's going to be watchable. But I'm not as hyped on John Wick 4 as I have the other John Wick movies. But who knows? I could be proven wrong. But for now, I'm only going three.
Yeah, I love these movies to death, so maybe I'm wearing rose-tinted glasses, but I can't get enough of them. I feel like it's been so awesome, but you know what? We'll just have to see what happens. It's only a couple of weeks away. Well, next up is A Good Person. This is going to theaters. Follows Allison, whose life falls apart following her involvement in a fatal accident. This stars Florence Pugh and Morgan Freeman. That's already at least a three in my book. I love both of those people wholeheartedly. And this premise does sound good. And this is directed and written by Zach Braff, who's also starring in a film also coming out later on in this month. So Zach Braff is going to be a busy, busy boy this month. But what did you think?
Um, I actually enjoyed the trailer as a whole. Obviously, I like Florence Pugh and Morgan Freeman, and I think there's going to be great drama, and I think the performances are going to stand out. Some of the humor that was in the trailer was a little on the cringy side. I don't know how that's going to be implemented into the story, but I do like the cast. I think the premise does have a lot of potential, and I hope it actually does deliver and win me over at the end of the day. So I'm going 3.5.
Yeah, I'll go four. I thought this trailer looked really good, and I think this might be a sleeper hit. Well, next up is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. A charming thief and a band of unlikely adventurers embark on an epic quest to retrieve a lost relic, but things go dangerously awry when they run afoul of the wrong people. This is directed by the same duo who brought us Game Night, which is a severely underrated comedy you all should check out. But I have no interest in this movie whatsoever. I'm going to see it to review it, obviously. But man, I've never really been a Dungeons and Dragons person. I know there are those people out there, and that's all well and good. But the last Dungeons and Dragons movie we got, it was the crap one with Jeremy Irons going, which was just horrible. And the last seemingly one that we got even similar to that was Warcraft, directed by Duncan Jones. And about 20 minutes in, I was comatose. But that's another story for another time. Jacob, enough of my rambling. What did you think?
Like you, Ryan, I'm not familiar with the Dungeons and Dragons material. The only reason I know about Dungeons and Dragons is because the characters in Stranger Things are obsessed with it. That's all I know about Dungeons and Dragons. I've not seen the other movie. I do like these directors though. I have seen Game Night. That movie's awesome. Go check it out. I wholeheartedly agree with Ryan's recommendation. I'm not in a big rush to see it, mainly because of my unfamiliarity with the games. I do like the cast involved, and the trailers for this movie look fun. But considering where I am at right now, and I'm kind of limited on the movies I'll be watching, this is more of a rental movie for me. I'm only going to go three on it because it looks fun, but it doesn't look like it's gonna. I'm just not in a big rush to see it. It's weird trying to explain it. Like it looks watchable, but compared to other movies like this one, not as much as some of the others on this list.
Yeah, I'm going to. Like I said, I like Chris Pine and I like some of the actors here, but I couldn't be asked on this one. Next up is Murder Mystery 2. Crikey Moses, I like you, Adam Sandler, but why do you keep making these movies? Full-time detectives Nick and Audrey are struggling to get their private eye agency off the ground. They find themselves at the center of international abduction when their friend Maharaja is kidnapped at his own lavish wedding. Should we just give this a one and move on?
Uh, yeah, I gave it a 1.5, but I can compromise and go one. The trailer was awful. Uh, it's sad because I thought Adam Sandler was past this phase of these like lowbrow comedies. I mean, Adam Sandler could be funny, but this just looks like another one where he was just phoning it in and just getting a paycheck just because he has that deal with Netflix. And I've not even seen the first movie.
No, I haven't either, but it just, the dude crushed in Uncut Gems and is like, oh, I've acted for a while. Back to the garbage dump. It's like, Adam, I like you. You're funny. But I mean, like, what are we doing here? Anyway, moving on now to something that is probably going to be 1,000 times better in every conceivable fashion. Tetris. This is going to Apple TV Plus. The story of how one of the world's most popular video games found its way to players around the globe. Businessman Hank Rogers and Tetris inventor Alexei Pajitnov, hope I said that right, joins forces in the USSR, risking it all to bring Tetris to the masses. I love playing me some Tetris, and I loved this trailer. Taron Egerton, Toby Jones. I like the cast here. I love this idea. It's giving me very good Argo vibes, and I love that movie. And I have a feeling that this is going to be a sleeper hit. I'm going 4.5.
The funny thing is, I've never even heard of the Tetris game until watching the trailer.
You what?
I've never played it. It's just I was not even familiar with the game.
All right, your homework assignment is to go on your phone's app store, find Tetris, and play it. Your mind will be blown.
But this movie actually looked really riveting, even though I've never played this game, not familiar with it in the slightest. I didn't even think about the Argo comparison until you brought it up, but I can definitely see that now that you've said it. I like Taron Egerton. The trailer, I like the vibe that it did have, especially the 80s retro references in the history and stuff. Talking about this movie makes me eventually want to subscribe to Apple TV Plus so I can catch up on some of these movies because this one looked really good. I'm gonna go 4 because I like the trailer. I'd give it a higher score if I had the streaming service, but yeah, this one looked good.
Yeah, it looks so good, and it just proves that Apple TV Plus is the sleeper hit of the streaming world. It's got Ted Lasso, it's got Coda, and I hope Tetris joins that club because and Tragedy of Macbeth, that movie was awesome. Well, next up is Spinning Gold. This is going to theaters. A biopic of 1970s record producer Neil Bogart, co-founder of Casablanca Records. Now, when I saw the thumbnail of this, I'm like, is Kiss finally getting a biopic? But no, Kiss is just the tip of the iceberg for this one. They got several recording artists under their belt, and this honestly looked pretty interesting, Jacob. What do you think?
It does look interesting. I'm intrigued by the story. I'm always a sucker for obviously movies about the music industry, and especially with this movie with like the people involved, like Kiss and Donna Summer and several others. This one has the potential to be good, but just watching the trailer, this looked like the cheapest way you could go about making a music biopic. None of the actors I saw in the trailers, for the most part, looked like the performers they were playing. And even I think they did like Donna Summer's Last Dance, either that or Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive in the trailer. And the actors did not even sound like the singers they were supposed to be singing. And it doesn't sound like an exciting movie to me. It looks like another vanilla music biopic, much like the Whitney Houston film that came out recently, which is a shame because I think this has the potential to be really, really good if it has good direction, if they pick actors that resemble these people, and it feels like a love letter to, I think, that record company or whatever they're trying to tell with this. But this looks like another dud to me in the genre, unfortunately. I'm going to go 2.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that one. And like even like music biopics that I'm not a big fan of, at least look the part. This kind of felt a little cheap, like you said. Well, next up is 1001. After unapologetic and fiercely loyal Inez kidnaps her son Terry from the foster care system, mother and son set out to reclaim their sense of home, identity, and stability in a rapidly changing New York City. Jacob, what did you think of this?
Um, I mean, I'm typically a fan of family dramas, even with the characters as flawed as they are. This one looks like it's gonna tackle some rough subject matter, but as long as I care about the bond, I think I should be able to get into it just fine. It looks like it's gonna have some heartfelt performances, and I think it could be another hidden gem this year. But we'll just have to see how the movie delivers, and I think some of the subject matter and the characters involved. So I'm gonna go 3.5 because of the potential that it has.
Yeah, I'll go with you on 3.5. I hope this comes to a theater close to me so I can actually go and see it. Well, next up, and well, let's continue down the sad road of Bruce Willis's final movies. Assassin, probably the lamest and most generic title for one of these movies ever. A man dies as part of an experimental military program. A former Black Ops soldier takes his place to find who killed him. And this just makes me sad because of what we know about Bruce Willis nowadays with his unfortunate condition. I feel so bad for him, but I don't know. I just feel bad.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think we've said this every time. Like, just these movies just don't look that exciting in the slightest, and we all know that Bruce Willis didn't really do much on these final movies because of the health conditions that he was trying to get through them as quickly as possible. So it's just an unfortunate situation, and it's so sad to see where Bruce Willis is right now, considering how awesome of an actor that he was in the past. I hate to give it a low score because, like, how can anybody watch these movies and get into them and stuff? So, eh, one. I'm just going one. This doesn't look exciting at all.
Yeah, I don't think I'm even going to give it a score. I just feel bad that it even exists. But let's move on to our last film, Chang Can Dunk. This is going to Disney Plus. A young Asian American teen and basketball fanatic who just wants to dunk and get the girl ends up learning much more about himself, his best friends, and his mother. I like this trailer. I did not think I would, but I like this trailer, and I think there could be some potential here, Jacob. What do you think?
Uh, I think it. I think it'll work for its target audience. I feel like, especially I think preteens and the teenage crowd that they can relate to a character like this. But the humor looked a little bit on the cringy side to me, definitely dealing into that like old Gen Z culture and obsession with like the social media and filters and TikTok and all that stuff, which some of that aspects don't appeal to me in the slightest. I'm hoping it can prove me wrong. I think you could do a heartfelt story, especially with the main character, but it doesn't look like it's not one I'm rushing to see either. But I think for its target audience, I think the film will be fine. I'm going. I had 2.5 originally, but I guess I can bump it up to a 3 just to be nice.
Yeah, I'll go three as well. I think this one it could be surprising. We'll see about that. But that's the March preview in the books. What movie are you all looking forward to? Leave it in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. And that's another episode in the books, Jacob. It is a privilege as always. Thank you so much. We're running a little late, but thank you. Like I said, it is a privilege. Where can people find you?
People can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. At the moment, I primarily do live streams every weekend where I talk about movies I've watched in the past week. If you miss the live stream, I tend to edit the live stream down into shorter videos, which I'll upload all throughout the following week. I'll be uploading some videos this week, including videos on Lilo and Stitch 2, a movie called The Cat's Meow from my Peter Bogdanovich director project, the Rodgers and Hammerstein version of Cinderella starring Brandy and Whitney Houston, which I recently watched for the first time. And then, even though I'm a month late officially, my thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantum Mania, which you if you watch the live stream, you know my thoughts on that. But I'll do a standalone video where you can see my thoughts on it if you missed the live stream. So those are all the videos that I got coming up. Uh, Sometime in March, I'll be discussing DreamWorks. We got Ryan Cam and Jacob Collins joining me on Shrek 2, so be on the lookout for that. And I'm hoping to start a Mission Impossible review series coming up in the run up to the new film coming out in July. So be on the lookout for all those things.
Yeah, definitely subscribe to Jacob, and his channel will be linked in the description. As for this channel, we're officially on the road to John Wick Chapter 4, so my John Wick review is officially up, and next week it'll be John Wick Chapter 2, or well, this coming Sunday, I should say. And then, of course, I will be reviewing at the very least 65. I do want to see that. But thank you all so much for watching. For Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. You take care.